welcome to the War Room. Simone, it really is nice to have you here. Jason and I always have a great time doing this, and I hope that we can continue that spirit with this episode. I have a feeling we will. It's already been a positive experience from the jump. So thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, as anyone who listens to the show knows, my favorite question to start things off with is, do you yourself come from a family of entrepreneurs?
I do.
Very nice.
I do.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
My grandfather had a Chevron station in I can tell you where, but he had a Chevron station, and that is how he met my grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it still family owned today?
Yeah.
He when he retired, he sold it. No, there's some restaurant, but that's how he met her. And that was, yeah. That is how he met her, was the gas station at the bottom of the hill where her family owned properties. Yeah.
Got it. So did that tradition then continue of just ownership and then entrepreneurship?
Yeah, and unbeknownst to me, I'm the one that for years and years and years ran other people's businesses. And finally I told my mom, I'm going to do my own thing. And she goes, well, and that's when I learned about this history of everyone having their own businesses. It wasn't apparent to me as a kid. It wasn't something I was paying attention to. And then she said, oh yeah. And I learned a lot.
I think there's an important opportunity here. You find this out, and how did that change your view on what you were doing? Did it immediately motivate you, or was like the push you needed, or were you sort of taken aback by it?
It gave me a lot of permission, like in my family. Up until that point, I ran law firms. I ran other people's businesses, and I'm the oldest of 6 children. So I was like, I'm now going to go out on my own. And, being an entrepreneur isn't always, thumbs up, the coolest thing to do in a family. And so when my mom was like, oh yeah, your grandfather was a business owner, and my grandmother's father, she shared with me, was a landlord. He had properties. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is not unknown territory for the family. Gave me a lot of permission to swing out and go into business for myself.
Love it. Now, you said you were running businesses. Was that transition easy, even with the permission being felt?
Was it easy?
Yeah, like it's one thing to go out and like, okay, you filled out the paperwork, you're going to go out and do that. But did you often feel like maybe I should just go back to, like, that's what I mean?
Oh yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of it was 20 some years ago. I'm kind of a diehard. I pulled the Band-Aid and I said yes. And
pulled the Band-Aid. I love that. That's great.
So yeah, I was, once I did it, I was in and all in and going to figure out how to be a business owner for sure. And I'm here in Seattle. I drank more coffee that first year of business. I think I drank coffee 30 hours a week for a living. I mean, like, but I was going to get that business, man. And we did, we were profitable our first year in business and have been ever since. But it was like, I was all in. And I think that's probably the thing that made the biggest difference. What you just said, Jason, was or Phillip, was I in or not? I think being all in, it was, if I'd been hesitant, I don't think I would have been, because I left a 6-figure job to something that was completely uncertain to me. And I didn't make 6 figures the first year, but it took me 2 years to replace my income, but I got there.
Now, were you able to carry over anything that you had learned running other people's businesses?
Yes, because we went into doing accounting services for other people. And then when you're doing accounting services, then they started which is contract financial officer, CFO services. And then pretty soon they were like, well, you can do that. Can you answer these questions? And so it was, as they learned in our business working relationship with our clients, then our engagements got bigger. And then, yes, I could, but I had to kind of go out and kind of find out what people in the marketplace really needed and wanted. before those, all those cups of coffee. That's really where I learned what people really needed. I had some idea of it, but it was really being interested in what, I talked to one person and they say, go talk to these three people. I go talk to those three people. It's really how I found out what people really needed at the time.
I love that you actually highlighted the whole coffee thing. It wasn't just something I was laughing at. I think it spoke to something that you'll hear the narrative. I just think it's an interesting opportunity to highlight. You'll hear the narrative of everyone's trying to be counter hustle culture, which I understand. There's something to be said for that. But I don't know if you agree with this, so I'm curious to know your position on that. And Jason too, feel free to step in on this. The idea of hustle culture, right? At some point, something has to give when you decide to be an entrepreneur. This is my postulate. You do have to make a sacrifice of some kind for the first 2 years, 3 years, whether it's not attending certain outings or, not sleeping. I'm not saying either one of those should be a choice. It's up to you to determine where your health stands and what you're doing. But there has to be something that gives. Is this accurate or false?
I think it's accurate. I think you have to look, for me, I had elementary school children whom running law firms, you're exchanging this big career for time with my kids at the time. Maybe the culture's changed now, but it wasn't then. So it was time. And so I was like, if I'm going to get that, what am I going to give? So I, my double-breasted suits and high-paying job for the first year or two, I probably bought used clothes. I didn't go buy truthfully, and, figured out how to make the dollars work and had a better relationship with my children, loved what I was doing. And to your point about, I did, hustle. Yeah. I would get up early, get the kids to school, go market and build relationships. And now several decades later, there are people who are developing, paid networking groups, right? For whom I'm a member, and some of them, and they'll say, I'm out meeting so-and-so. And I'm like, well, you're going to meet people I know. And she's like, yeah, right. I'm like, and she'll meet somebody and she'll go, they know you. I'm like, yeah, because it's not that big of a community and you can't network for, 5 years full time and not know people in the community. So I think in the beginning, you are meeting people and you are trusting in the business community. It is who you know. And so, yeah, I do think the hustle is part of what you're doing. And it's you get up and you go talk to people and you got to be willing to, I don't know, be uncomfortable or dislocated from what you're used to. You're not going to sit in your office and the work's not going to come to you. You got to go find it.
Yeah. Jason, you have some thoughts on that?
I do absolutely have thoughts on that. My take on the hustle is this. The hustle never stops. Never. Because the second it stops, you stop innovating.
Yeah.
You're always in a hustle all the time. It's just different kinds of hustle, right? I'm not in the same hustle that I was, 20 years ago when I started my first company. I'm not there, but my hustle now is just something different. My hustle is, oh, kids, I got to go downstairs and do this podcast. I'll be back in 30 minutes. So, it's just a different kind of hustle. That's all it is, right? For me, it's always the last minute, right? It's like 13 after, right? Go get it done, back with family. 20 years ago, it was just constant chaos like that all the time. You just didn't stop ever. There was no family. It was just this grind all the time, right? The 30 cups of coffee a day, right? To just get it done. So we never stop hustling in business, because the day you stop hustling is the day you will not innovate.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep the hustle.
Right on. Thank you both for indulging that. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And now, Simone, so you step into the world. You took the Band-Aid off, as you, in your own words, and you went all in. And you started getting clients, and you sort of alluded to this in the answer to the other question. You were networking like crazy, coffee included. At what point did things start to even out for you, and you finally realized, like, yeah, this was the right decision?
It was in that first year. I'm an extrovert. I love people, kind of what Jason was talking about. I'm going to be moving and doing things with people, period, all the time. And 20 years later, I'm still talking. Even during the pandemic, people are like, "Oh, don't you love being?" Because our firm has been virtual for 14 years. How we deliver our services is virtual, but how I do most of our marketing is face to face with people. So I love the being with people and what do you need and how do we do this? So yes, it was definitely like I was home, like this is it.
Right on. And so then that being said, you're established, you're here now. What does that look like? Like you said, 20 years later, what is it looking like for you?
20 years later, mid 19, my business partner of 20 years said, I'm out. She was a couple of years. I'd been married 30 years. She'd been married, 4 or 5. One would have thought I'd never been filed. I'd never had somebody break up with me. It was like, oh my goodness. But at the end of 19, we got an exit plan for her. 20, she had been running our client accounting services. So it was really in 20 during the pandemic, figuring out, how to alter the services that she'd run for so many years. Take that over, retool all of that in 21, really figure out how we were going to scale it. And now we're building a client accounting services, bookkeeping, payroll services, all that kind of stuff, but in a profit-centric way and in a way that's budgetable, packaged for people. We even do our tax returns in a subscription model so people can pay for their tax return over a year. I find that if people are in a subscription that month, paying for it monthly, they reach out. Our mindset just has people reach out. And I have my daughter and daughter-in-law work for me. One is on the accounting services, one is on the tax side, and they are the age I was when I started this.
Nice.
So it's multi-generational. And what Jason said, now what my hustle is business development. It's, now to innovate, now it's marketing online and finding out what's the next era and how do we, what's the next piece of the offering that really in the culture of our firm to really deliver value for our customers, but still love what we do and see maybe if I could figure out something else to do with. I have 2 grandboys, so grandbaby boys.
Me too. That's the fun part of life when that starts. You get to spoil them with all the sugar you want and send them home.
Send them home.
Oh, I think you presented an awesome opportunity. It's because it's not often that people get to hear that side of the story. And I'm not asking you to go into any personal details, but I would love to know is some of the reflections you concluded on with partnerships, because businesses, do tend to have that happen where someone wants the exit, right? Were things always going to be the way they were? Do you have any thoughts or reflections on it now after having had the experience that maybe like you should have put in place before, or now you guarantee you're going to be putting in place beforehand?
My dad was an attorney, and having worked in law firms, we had a partnership agreement. And so when it came time to really look at it, I will say at the same time, I had a good friend whose partner wanted to leave. And I engaged an attorney who was all about mediation. Let's work this out. And I'll say it probably cost me less, both in attorney fees and in the negotiations, because it was very amicable and he represented us both, as opposed to how it went for her, my friend, who had the same deal, thousands and thousands of dollars, and a whole different deal that you've got 2 attorneys. And so having a good partnership agreement out of the gate, no matter who you are. And we had insurance, cross insurance. We had a buy-sell agreement and the cross insurance. So when it came time, she also got to cash out her insurance policy. So there were just some things for her that were those things that people think, oh, we're just this little firm. We're not a big company. Do it. Because the time will come when you don't think you're that big, that you'll have that in your back pocket. And I would say I probably am paying half of what somebody who didn't pays for the total kit and caboodle, as they say, the whole thing, because we had a good solid agreement. We used the same attorney and it was amicable and still is amicable. She took a small book of business. She sends us tax work. We get, it's amicable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would say.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's not something that we get to talk about all the time, because every now and then there's a solopreneur, right? But it's really cool to talk to somebody who has your exact mix of experience, both in businesses being run by you, launching your own practice firm, and then also having worked with attorneys just in general, and that whole mix that you have that's exclusively your perspective. It would be a missed opportunity if I didn't ask that. So now we've gone past, present, and you sort of alluded to the future with the idea of developing business. Is there anything the listeners should know or can do to help push that forward?
We're just looking for businesses that are looking for profit-centric accounting services, where we work virtually with people. We have clients. So funny. I looked recently. We are based out of Washington State, but we have an emphasis: Washington, California, Texas. I find that to be I think it's funny, but that is our biggest concentration, because we work with clients that then refer us to people they know and like and trust. And so we do work, and we have employees in 6 states. So we're not a big firm, but we, over the course of the pandemic, hired people. And so we love working with businesses that are looking for a partner, an accounting partner. And so I think that's when they're talking to somebody, they will actually want an accountant who they can talk to. We actually do talk to our clients. And we find in our industry, a lot of times that they get talked at.
I know exactly what you're talking about. For sure. I can 100% relate to that, because it's like when your insurance agent, I always tell my insurance agent all the time, don't tell me all the technical stuff. Just tell me what it means. Give me English, because it's like blah, 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 blah. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So just talk in plain English, right? And if you get somebody that can do that, is like really talk to you like you're a third grader.
Yeah, or at least in something and the other piece of it, what you're saying, Jason, is if I say it in a way that for you is actionable, that you can take action on what we speak about.
Perfect.
That makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You summed up my words for me. Thank you.
There you go. See, this is what she does. What she does.
You're
Sign
hired.
up now. Speaking to that.
Click the button right now.
So, on that very topic, where do you prefer for people to connect with you? Now that you're doing most like the virtual work and this, are you a social media person? Do you prefer the website, email?
Probably our website. It's the easiest way for us. Yeah.
And that would be clearaccounting.com, or
it's clear. It's at the end of it. It's clearacctg.com.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And now we've reached the tail end of the conversation, and it's twofold. On one end, we're talking about the idea of what a person just starting out would probably benefit from hearing based on your experience. And then on the other, it's a grand finale question. So let's start with the first one. Given what I've learned about where you had your start, there's somebody out there who's currently running someone's business who has the gift. They have the potential. Sure, all of us to some degree are capable of doing this, so some more than others, and some want it more than others. So for the person who really wants it, who's sitting there running a business for somebody right now, and they think, there's probably more I could do, what would you say to them, Simone, given that you did that, you made the change, you went all in, we've heard your story. Now, how do we push them?
It sounds simple. I understand, not easy, but they have a plan. What I would say is you have to take action on that plan every day. Every day. Every day, every day. Yeah, I didn't get out of bed until I was clear what actions I was taking every day. Before I put my feet on terra firma, right? Like before I put my feet on the ground, I was clear the actions I was going to take. And then I got up and I did them. And having that, somebody I'm sure much more brilliant and successful said something like, have a work, make your plan and work your plan, which sounds simple and isn't easy in execution, but that's it.
Love it. I could totally take a page out of that, for real. People talk a lot about routine, but seriously, know what you're going to do before you move. Yeah.
But there is something about knowing the actions I'm going to take, make it so much easier than I have to do, and it being some vague thing. But when you're clear about the actions you need to do for the day, it's so much easier.
Right on. Now is the grand finale. And, it sounds huge, but really it's just an open-ended, very curious question. And that is, if you could have invited anybody, dead or alive, like at any point in time in history, the world, who would you have had, if you had your pick of the litter, who would you have invited today to be an additional guest to either listen or contribute?
I would invite my husband's grandfather. His name was Firth Chu, and he was an accountant. He was a CPA. And I wrote letters when I was pregnant with my daughter, back and forth. And he is who inspired me to do what I do. He was a CPA back in the day when you went to lunch with your guy and you talked to him and what do I do? And before there were all the constraints on things, he was the guy who was your counselor about how you do those things. And he is who inspired me to do what I do today.
I love that, because it tells me a lot about how you view your relationship to businesses. And it makes sense coming back to the statement you made about talking to someone as opposed to at someone. There's this level of, you're a real person on the other end, and I keep that in mind when I work with you. And I think that's a lesson and a great reminder for anyone who already knows it and just forgot that that's what they were doing. So thank you for that. Those are my closing thoughts. I want to leave it with Jason as well.
Well, I always like to close with this is, we all have 168 hours in a week, and you can replace a lot of things. You can replace cars, money, all these material things. But the one thing you can't do is reverse the clock. So thank you for taking this small segment of your time to spend with us here in the War Room. We appreciate it, especially to drop some knowledge bombs here and there. There were plenty of them. If you caught them, good for you. If you didn't, you just weren't listening. So there's a lot of value in conversations like these and how they are able to shape, form, and change a young mind in so many ways. A young and up and coming business owner in the market, that we take a lot of this stuff for granted because we've been doing it for 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. But just those few little things in this short amount of time could impact, if it just impacts one person, we did our job. So thank you for that. And it was an honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, Simone. Awesome having you on.
Thank you both. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and for having me. I appreciate it.
Great having you.